and she is going to be sharing a little bit of information about Wisconsin women in conservation, about the work that we're doing and what to expect for 2024. Thanks, Esther.
Thanks, Sarah. Hi, everyone. Good morning and welcome today to this incredible network of conservation educators in Wisconsin. I'm just going to share my screen and talk to you a little bit about Wisconsin Women in Conservation and what we do. Not that you all don't know what we're doing, but oh, sorry. I'm just going to go into this is okay, slideshow. So we just wanted to talk to you a little bit about what we do and how we do what we do, because you're all going to be a part of Wisconsin Women Conservation in the different counties that you are helping us with. And so this is a project that's funded by USDA and RCS Wisconsin, and we work in partnership with. It is led by Michael Fields Agricultural Institute, but we work in partnership with Wisconsin Farmers Union, Renewing the Countryside, Marble Seed, and our research and eval is done by eResources Group. And so here are the incredible faces of our coordinators who work in the different regions of the state: Noemi, Alana, Allison, Mercedes, and Elena. They are the boots on the ground working with the women landowners. Who did we work with? We work with the landowners, we work with non-operators, we work with beginning farmers, and there are also a lot of educators and volunteers, farm workers who were part of this group. We provide a safe space to share stories and connect with one another. In all of our events, the women are able to meet other women who are passionate about conservation, and also find a network of peers and professionals to thrive with. Learn together about building a healthy soil, having support and technical help for conservation plans, and collaboratively steward a land for future generations. And also, we strive to build a local community so that they can support one another and grow. This is the map that you'll see on our website. The lighter shaded ones are the ones that we worked for the past 3 years, and the darker shaded ones are the new counties where we are moving in to work in 2024 and 2025. What have we done so far? We have actively engaged more than 3,300 women. They are involved in the events and our newsletters and our listserv. And we have about 120 conservation plans that we've completed throughout the state. 25% of it is have signed up for EQ program and got resources through NRCS. We have had more than 50 events. We have had 19 educator events in the past 3 years. They've completed 12 summer webinars and 7 winter webinars. Successful first ever Wisconsin Conservation Educators Conference with 100 educators we've done. We are looking forward to organizing another conference in 2025 around the same time, around April of next year. The new tri-counties that we are working in are like Trempealeau, La Crosse, and Monroe. In West Central, Alana Kushalak will be the coordinator there. Dane, Rock, and Jefferson is the South Central, and Noemi Serrano is the coordinator for that region. Green Lake, Columbia, and Sauk. Allison Crook works in those regions. Eau Claire, Chippewa, and Clark. Mercedes Salvati is the one who works there. It's precious removal seed. I just wanted to give you a preview of the events that we are planning for 2024. We just completed our 2 winter webinars. We did a webinar on the tribal nations of Wisconsin, which is well appreciated. We had about 120 women join us for that webinar. The spring learning circles are coming up. We have 4 of those lined up, and they are live. Registration is live on our website. We have field days planned for summer, and then we have the summer webinars through which we meet women across the state. That's planned and it's coming up. The fall learning circles are planned. 4 of those are planned, and that's I don't know what I meant. Their plans for it. And then educator network events are coming up. There's like 6 of those. And other events in 2024 are conservation bus tours. We have 5 of those across the state. We really want the conservation educators to jump in and help our coordinators to be on those bus tours, because this is the way it's organized. Is those educators will help us to see conservation, different practices as we are along the route, and through different set of eyes, like a foresters or a wildlife biologist or agriculturalist, trying to see the same thing with different set of eyes and trying to help women see those conservation practices that's been adopted in those places. And then we have potluck networking events. These are done in the tri-county clusters that we worked on in the first iteration of the project. And so the actual events are happening in the second tri-county clusters, while the potluck networking events are done by our conservation coaches in the first tri-county clusters. This is an invite to you all to join us for the Spring Learning Circles on April 24th. There's an April Trails Resort Sparta on May 1st, Goodman Community Center in Madison. May 7th, Mackenzie Nature Center, Poinet, and May 8th is Camp Kenwood, Chippewa Falls. And that's about it. Thank you. We look forward to you all joining us in all these events and helping the landowners to learn more about conservation and helping us to connect them to all the professionals who are involved in it. Thank you. Sarah.
Thank you so much, Esther, for the explanation of what Wisconsin Women in Conservation is doing this year. We look forward to having you at each of those events. I'm going to get us ready for the first thing we're going to be doing is a breakout. But while I explain the breakout, I'm going to drop a poll in here that's kind of fun for you to do. So what is a sign of spring that you've seen recently? You can click a few of them. This year's been so different, but wanted to do that. Now, just so that you're aware, we are going into a breakout room. One of the things we're doing with our educator network is networking with each other. So we want to put you in groups of 3 in the breakout rooms and just give you some questions that you can talk through together in the breakout room, get to know each other a little bit better. These questions are going to be just simple: your name and your location, the organization you're with, and we'll send this to you, don't worry. The area of educator work focus, and then how did you get started, or how did you know you wanted to be a conservation educator? You don't have to hit all of them, but just kind of think through what got you started in conservation, or how did you know you wanted to be a conservation educator, and what is your educator work focus? So goodness, I love these answers. So trees, I'm going to share this. Oh, not quite yet. Most people have responded. It looks like a lot of people are excited about all the birds and the trees budding. So do you want to share that poll so they can see those responses? I know as a farmer myself, we're going into mud season. So definitely mud season is a part of every spring that I dread, but the rest of it I really look forward to. But mud season is officially here. Great. So that being said, there's going to be a breakout room and it's going to ask you to join the breakout room in just a moment. And so if you can join your breakout room, your questions are your name and location, your organization, or in your area of your work focus. And then in addition, how did you know you wanted to be a conservation educator? Or how did you get started? And if anybody needs help going into a breakout room, let us know. We'll be happy to help you. There's a button on the bottom of the screen that says breakout, or on your screen, it may have popped up inviting you to a breakout room. Great. Great. And we may want to move. Rosalind, Kathy, do you need assistance finding your room? Oh, let's move Kathy to room 3.
There are quite a few of those, Sarah. Do we want to move them or?
Single ones, yeah. Here comes Rosalie and
So
Kate.
room 4, nobody's joined, I think.
Room 4 looks full.
Oh,
I'm not finding a way to move Kathy to 3 because that's what she's assigned to.
Kathy, do you see how to add to go into that room? Room 3? And June. Good. Oh,
Hello, I'm June.
yeah, June, we're just starting off with a breakout room. And so
I got in there, but then nothing happened. There was just this word.
great.
Someone else's black screen.
So do we want to go to either 13 or
I moved them to 16.
Yep,
So
yep.
if
So
we're-
I'll hit join and I'll do that again. I'll see if it
Great.
works.
yeah, if June and Tess could move to 16, there's some folks in there right now.
and it looks like there's a couple that have 2. So I wonder if Rosalie or Holly or Rebecca. Sarah's asking for help. Oh, she's by herself in room 1. Can we assign Sarah to room 2? Do you want me to go in there and talk to her?
I just did. We'll see if she accepts it. Okay, it looks like she did.
There she did. Perfect. And Kate, we should move to, before she joins, move her to maybe 5, 6, 5 and 6. So Rosalie, are you able to hear us? We can put Kate in 5 or 6. Rebecca, are you with us?
Sarah, I just want to flag that there's a Kathleen and a Kate Plachetka. And
Okay,
Kathleen is in room 2. It might be the same person. She might be.
sure. Connecting to audio, it shows on the screen.
Rosalie, we have you in room 5. You just need to accept the thing on your screen that says to join the room. If you're having trouble with that, if you could just let us know.
Rebecca, did you have a question? We have you in room 2.
You're muted.
Oops. You're muted.
Mute. I'm sorry. I had an incoming phone call that I had to take, so I wasn't on here. This is my
Okay.
first time on, so I'm trying to go with whatever happens.
You're doing fantastic, Rebecca.
Mm.
So,
My answer was not now.
okay, great. Well, it looks like there's room in room 5, Rebecca. Or Rosalie, I have you going in room 5.
I had answered not now.
Oh, okay. Rebecca is what room? Have you done a breakout room before, Rebecca? What we're doing is a brief breakout room to get to know conservation educators. And we're asking just to have you team up with, there's 3 of you in the room. So it'll be your name, location, the organization you're with. And then how you got started, or how did you know you wanted to be a conservation educator?
Sarah, I propose that we ask Dina to join room 14, which only has 2 people in it.
Great.
Hi, Dina.
Hello.
Hi guys, I
Okay,
got kicked
I'm
out of
good
the
now.
meeting. This is Holly. Would you mind throwing me back into a room? My apologies.
No problem.
Holly, do you remember what room you were in? Do you remember the number?
Yep, room 1.
Okay. Oh, you were the only person, so we moved you to a different room. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna move you to room 14.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Great. And then Rosalie said not now.
Correct.
And
So I think everybody who was
Yep.
going to should be good right now.
Nice.
Mhm.
Breakout rooms are always a struggle when you're doing it live on Zoom, you know. And you'd think we'd have this down with
And then I
Well,
figured-
you know, so much depends on, you know, if somebody's gonna click the button or not. And so it's like, just have to do it as it goes.
Sarah, did we say how long we were having people stay in the
That
breakout?
is one thing I didn't say a lot about. So 10:25 is the goal to be back. And I think at 10:23 we can bring them back. So at 10:22, I'm gonna give them a heads up. That it's one more minute.
Okay.
So watch that. Oh, cool. I'm trying to comment on people's stuff in the chat because that always feels good.
Mhm.
Mm.
So I saw 58 people on the call. Right?
There's 52 participants in
Now?
the rooms, 17. Let's see, mine says,
At one point, I thought I saw, when I was presenting at that, I saw 58.
I
Yeah, I
think
think
it's
that's what I
58
saw
now.
too.
Okay.
Mm. Yep. Good work, guys. Genesis's comment in the chat is great. So stoked to help landowners adopt conservation practices that help the environment and their bottom line. Yeehaw.
I was actually correcting one of the slides to add plans for an indigenous conservation series. And I forgot, because I think we got distracted and I forgot that. And then I really blanked out when I was seeing that plans for, I freaked out. Oh my God, I made a mistake. I didn't realize what it was about.
I am going to send a message that says 1 more minute.
Hi, Sylvia. Welcome. We're folks are in a breakout room right now, but we're about to all come back together in the large group.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes.
Great. And I think if we did the closed breakout room at 10:22, it'll automatically initiate that 1 minute countdown for them.
Great. I will press that button in
a moment. I'm going to refill my cup really super fast.
Okay, 60 seconds. People can leave the breakout rooms.
Great. And they oftentimes will just start coming back. Before then. Yes, here they go. This is poll 2 is coming up next. Hey. Fun getting to know new conservationists throughout the state in those little meetings on the side just to meet new people, isn't it?
Mhm.
Yay. We just have another couple seconds and everybody will be joining us back and we'll get started.
Right.
Great. Welcome.
We're back in the main room. Okay.
Yeah. Welcome back. We're so excited. I hope you got a chance to meet somebody that you haven't interacted with in the past and you had a great learning experience in there so that you can begin making some engaging connections. At this point, we're going to do another quick poll. And this poll is how many years you've worked in conservation education. So how many years you've worked in conservation. It's interesting to always see, what we have in the room. So 27, let's see what we got. Give another minute for this one. And while we're waiting, if you want to put in the chat, who was your mentor? for your conservation. Who was your mentor? So in the chat, if you had somebody that you leaned on for mentoring, who was that? Fantastic. All right, let's share that chat out. It's pretty equal around here, everybody. And most of you are actually with just starting your job, or you're just under a year. So congratulations. We're so excited that you're here networking amongst peers that are also doing this amazing conservation work. I get the honor now of introducing our first speaker, Sue Swanson. She's the Director and State Geologist who leads the talented staff at Wisconsin Geological and Natural History. And she connects with communities and stakeholders across the state to advance the understanding and use of geological information. Prior to becoming the state geologist, Sue taught at Beloit College for over 20 years. Her research as a hydrologist included studying how groundwater moves through fractures in the sedimentary bedrock aquifers and interactions between groundwater and surface water and the hydrology of the springs. She began this journey as a Peace Corps volunteer and got deeply interested in education and water resources. She now considers herself a lifelong educator, and I can't wait for you to hear more about Sue's journey. So here is Sue. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and thanks to all of you for attending today. I'm really excited to engage with this community and to learn more about this organization. It's pretty exciting. So I'm going to go ahead and attempt to share my screen. I've got some slides that I'll show all of you. A second here. There's that. Okay, how are we doing? Can we see my slides? Excellent, great. Okay. So what I'm going to do today is tell you a little bit about how I got started in education and natural resources. Sarah and others did a really nice job of giving me some prompts, which I tend to be someone who follows directions, so I will will do what Sarah asked. So so right now my position is the director of the Wisconsin Geological and Natural History Survey. It also carries the title of state geologist. Still getting used to that title. And the Wisconsin Geological and Natural History Survey is part of UW-Madison. We're in the Division of Extension and then specifically within the Natural Resources Institute. And I'll tell you a little bit more about the survey in a little bit. So let's see if I can advance slides now. There we go.
Perfect.
All right, so so the first question is similar to what you all just addressed in the breakout room. And it is, how and when did you know you wanted a career in conservation? And so what I'm showing you a picture of is the farm where I grew up. And this is located in northern Wisconsin, not northern Wisconsin, northern Illinois. And I moved to this farm when I was in about 4th grade. It was my grandparents' farm, and after they passed away, my family moved here, and from central Illinois. And this picture was taken when my grandparents still lived there, probably in the late 40s sometime. But it looked pretty much the same when I lived there too. And so, you know, this is really where I grew up, and I consider myself really lucky, really privileged to have had the experience to grow up with all this space, with animals. We had cows, we had chickens and sold eggs. We had, you know, variety of cats, and one of my favorite things to do was to go and hunt for kittens up in the barn. You know, we knew we were going to have a litter of kittens, and you'd have to follow the little meows to figure out where they actually were. One of my favorite things. And then, you know, at various times, we certainly had dogs, but, you know, I can remember shorter periods where we had a couple of ducks, and then we had bunnies, and you know, anyways, it was great. And not shown in this particular picture, but this is looking south, so a little bit across the street into the south, we had a pond, and I spent a lot of time down there fishing, and I'd head out to the area behind the barn and dig up worms. You know, I was kind of the type of kid who was outside a lot. So, you know, did I know what I wanted to do at this point? Absolutely not. But I knew growing up that I was somebody who kind of needed to be outside and getting my hands dirty. So what happened next? Okay, and so I made a slide to try and give you a feel for how my career path evolved. And so this is intentionally a wiggly path. I know that sometimes when you hear people describe their career path, it may sound like this really linear path where, man, how did that person have it all figured out? It just seems like things fell into place, and you know, and that's not happening with me. And I want to reassure everybody that my path was wiggly, and I'll describe that as I progress through the slides here. So yeah, when I was in high school, I really enjoyed science courses. I had family members who were geologists. So even though I never took an earth science course when I was in junior high or high school, I knew about geology and thought it was really interesting. And then I was also really interested in biology too. I mean, those were the things that I enjoyed, right, on the farm. So when I went off to college, I attended Gustavus Adolphus College in southern Minnesota, and chose Gustavus in part because they had a geology department. I was guided by my parents to look at liberal arts colleges and consider myself, again, really privileged to have been able to attend one. But not all liberal arts schools have a geology program. So yeah, I went to Gustavus, and in my first semester, I took both a geology course and a biology class, and figured, okay, this is how I'm going to decide. And at the end of the semester, the geology spoke to me, and I ended up with a geology major and a biology minor. Had 4 great years in southern Minnesota at Gustavus. You know, like a lot of college students, you sort of get close to the end of this 4-year experience, and it's like, okay, now I got to figure out what I'm actually going to do. And you know, with the geology major, you know, I had sort of maybe a limited imagination at that point, and I thought I would like to map. Well, you know, I mean, I finally got there where I'm actually at an institution now where we map, right, geological resources. But you know, to be quite honest, those jobs are few and far between. And so I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I didn't even know what area of geology I was most interested in. I thought I might like teaching. And I also wanted to learn more about different cultures and see a little bit more of the world. And so I had a friend who had joined the Peace Corps, and I thought, okay, I can do this, right? I can escape the Midwestern United States, and I did. And so I joined the Peace Corps, and I lived for just over 2 years in Lesotho, which is in Southern Africa. It is, if you're familiar with the geography of Southern Africa, it is the country that is completely landlocked by South Africa. I arrived in this part of the world at a really interesting time in history. I got to Lesotho in the fall of 1989. And at this time, the apartheid era was unraveling in South Africa. Within 3 months of arriving in Lesotho, Nelson Mandela was released from prison. The Group Areas Act had already been repealed, but the Land Act was repealed. This was an act during the apartheid era that prevented Black people, colored people, as they're termed in Southern Africa, Africans from owning land, right? So it was a really interesting time to be in Lesotho, completely landlocked by South Africa. There's a lot of many migrant mine workers at the time. So folks worked in the mines in South Africa from Lesotho. I don't know if you can you see my cursor on the screen? Seeing a nod? Okay. So I lived right about where my cursor was, just north of Kuting, it's pronounced. And I taught math and science at a secondary school. And so this is equivalent to sort of 7th, 8th, and 9th grade in the United States. I had a wonderful experience in the Peace Corps. I had really bad days, right? And then I had really wonderful days, and the wonderful days outweighed the bad days.
What's up?
Well outweighed. And during that time, while I was teaching really more math than science courses, general science courses, this experience, it not only helped me understand what area of geology I was interested in. It helped me understand I was interested in water resources, right? So I came from a place that was very water rich, never questioned the idea of turning on a tap and being able to drink water and have it be safe, and lived in a location where I needed to, go and collect my water from a tap, a village tap, and I needed to boil it before using it for drinking water, or for cooking. So yeah, this is what helped me understand understand that I was interested in water. And it also helped me understand that I really liked teaching. I learned that I didn't want to teach at the secondary level necessarily, but I enjoyed teaching. Okay, so let's move on. Right. And when I returned to the United States, I moved back up to Minnesota. And so we're kind of down where it says CRA. I got a job with an environmental consulting firm in the Twin Cities. And I did a lot of field work on sites that needed some type of remediation of either groundwater or soils in response to industry. And it was a really great learning experience in terms of getting field work experience. But I knew after about a year and a half or 2 years that while I got great experience in water resources, that this was, I was much more interested in management of water resources and conservation and preservation and restoration of groundwater and surface water systems. So I applied to grad school. And that might seem like, okay, now, Sue's on track here, knows what she's going to do. But what I ended up doing was I applied to UW-Madison, moved to Madison, and entered a water resources management program in the Nelson Institute at UW. And this is an interdisciplinary program, and about a year into it, I was working at the State Geological Survey part-time, and about a year into it, I realized that while I was enjoying the policy aspects of the master's program, I really missed the science. And so I applied to the geology program at the same time. And it took about 3 years, but I ended up with a couple of master's degrees in water resources management and geology. So, it took me a little bit of time then to kind of figure out what my path was. I went back into consulting for about a year. That's RMT. That's a consulting firm in Madison. And again, great people, good experience, but I kind of got back there and I thought, wait a second, I just spent 3 years getting a couple of master's degrees and I kind of felt like I was back where I started. So hopefully you're getting the sense that this is not a linear progression, right? And so I applied to graduate school again. And started the PhD in hydrogeology at UW-Madison. And once I was finished with my PhD at that point, I was like, I do want to teach at the same time as pursuing research interests. And I was really, kind of lucky enough to land at Beloit College, which is in Beloit, Wisconsin. This is a picture of many of my students on a variety of different adventures that we had. And, my job really, first and foremost, was an educator at Beloit. I taught courses in hydrogeology, environmental geology, geographic information systems, GIS, and interdisciplinary courses too in water policy. I had research endeavors that I pursued, did a lot of administrative work, sort of service and committee work, right? And at Beloit, Beloit College really emphasizes advising of students. So spent lots of time getting to know my students. And again, I show you these field experiences because that's like, for me, that's when I did my best teaching and my best mentoring, sitting around a campfire, cooking together, living together on these geology field trips. And again, lucky enough that, at Beloit, there's a real international education focus. So this picture over on the left, I led a semester-long study abroad experience in Tanzania. And then this picture on the lower center led 2 different field studies courses in China with a colleague in modern languages. And so I'm gonna kind of bring it, to a close to where I am now. And I'm at the survey, so it's like, well, what happened, Sue? I realized that while I love teaching, I didn't need to be in the classroom every day. But when this opportunity came up at the survey, it was perfect because, part of the mission of the State Geological Survey is outreach. So I'm like, okay, I can still do that type of work. I can still stay engaged in the science, right? I'm doing less of my own research now, but I get to learn about and talk about all the great work that the staff of the survey is doing. In terms of mentoring and advising, I'm mentoring, my colleagues here now. That we have a lot of early and mid-career staff, so I still was able to do that. And then this is first and foremost, it's an administrative position, and I enjoy administrative work. And so that service came into play at the survey too. So the mission of the survey is to conduct education, outreach, and applied research activities on the geological and water resources of the state of Wisconsin, in the name of informed decision-making around our natural resources by state, county, local, and tribal governments, and really all residents of Wisconsin. And so here's some of the staff members at the survey, and you can kind of get a sense from this pie chart of areas of expertise and number of folks. And we're based here in Madison. Okay, finally, last slide here. Piece or two of advice I'd give someone, okay? So find ways to double count. What do I mean by this? It's okay to be thinking about yourself, right? As you are asked to pursue other activities. So an example of this was like early in my career, I needed to get my research out there, right? So doing things like organizing events for a researcher, organizing a session at a national meeting, the Geological Society of America. Double counting was like, okay, yeah, I had to do the work of organizing this session, but I could choose the topic, and then I could put myself in there in the lineup of talks, and I could invite somebody like, in that field that I really respected. Like, that's totally a way to double count, right? So look for opportunities like that. And, right, just look for opportunities. And what I mean by this is, I'm not telling everybody to always be looking for a new job, but look at what's out there, right? Like, you want the decision to be yours. So if you're not aware of what all those opportunities are, you can't make your own decision, right? So just be aware of those opportunities. Take time to do that. Carve out time for yourself and time to reflect, right? We can really get on a track of getting caught up in our daily lives, managing our home life, right? And we pass up opportunities to pat ourselves on the back. So yeah, making sure that you find an hour or two in each week where you're like, okay, this is my time, right? And then make sure that you do something to reward yourself every once in a while, right? And say good job to yourself. What keeps me going and growing, it's these types of things, and it's the people that I work with, right? It all comes down to the people in the end. And that's it. That's what I got. How'd I do on time?
Oh, Sue, you did fantastic. And I love that you shared that chart that just shows, it's not linear. And it's really important that you share that. And looking at how many new conservation educators we have on this call, I think that that's really something really helpful for us to see. And when your job gives you joy, when it I love the work I do. It doesn't feel like work. And so that's like, and I see that in you. You carry your passion through. I would have loved to have been one of your students in Beloit. That would have been amazing. There's a lot of parts of that journey. So this is fantastic. Now we get the honor of hearing from Kristen Foringer. So Kristen, I'm going to introduce right now. She is the state working lands climate smart specialist on the state soils team. Previously, she was an NRCS soil scientist out of the Altoona area office. She's been on many of my field days that I hosted out here. And in prior roles with the Agricultural Research Service and Buffalo County Land Conservation Department. She's a Wisconsin native, originally from Elkhart Lake. And being from that area and the daughter of a mechanic and avid outdoorsman, she spent a lot of her youth at the local racetracks and hiking and hunting in the Kettle Moraine State Forest. She and her brother lived for weekends and holidays at the cabin their grandpa built in Mead Lake in Clark County. And during their senior year in high school, she was torn between an accountant and something in the natural resources. I think that's kind of fun to share, Kristen, so I had to share that here. She chose the seemingly less rational option for her family, and she ditched the accounting internship and that she had since her sophomore year, and let her curiosity for the natural world and love of the outdoors guide the next several years of her education and work decisions. I'm going to let her tell you the rest of the story because it's so much fun. She is super resourceful, passionate conservationist, and I can't wait to hear what she has to tell us. So Kristen, take it away.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm going to share my screen real quick. Let me know if you all can see the presentation.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect.
Okay, great. Well, thank you everyone for joining us this morning. Thank you for the introduction, Sarah and Sue. It was lovely to hear about your journey. We share some commonalities in that, taking the nonlinear path to where we ended up in our careers. So I'm excited to share that with you all. I do think it's important to know that you don't have to know where you're going to end up, right? Just keep seeking out opportunities and trying new things and keep a growth mindset and stay curious. So let me advance, hopefully. Okay, so I'll start with my current role. I'm the Working Lands Climate Smart Specialist for Wisconsin NRCS. So this is a new position for NRCS and Wisconsin. So in any new role, there's a lot of learning to be done, and there's a lot of opportunities and a lot of projects that you can work on. So I wanted to just kind of spell out what I've been working on and what my role is in this new position, pulling from my soils background. I am on the state office soils team, so I still do a lot of soil health work with soils. But as you all are probably aware, USDA has a lot of climate change, climate smart initiatives. We have a lot of funding in this space, and we are lagging behind in climate literacy, education, and outreach. So a huge part of my job is really trying to make that information and the tools tangible to our landowners and to our partners and any other conservation professionals. I work very closely with the Midwest Climate Hubs. So I deliver information that the states need back to the hubs, and they can help develop tools and resources to help us better do our jobs as planners and educators. I still work a lot as technical soil service provider. So I get out in the field and still get to do demonstrations. I help update soils data or develop soil interpretations that we can use for planning activities. I get to work on conservation practice standards. So one that we've been working on and recently adopted is the soil carbon amendment standard for Wisconsin. So anyone who knows anything about biochar and compost, that's what this standard is about. And it has really great climate mitigation and adaptation uses. So I work on a lot of the technical documents for that. I do a lot of internal trainings, but also because of my background, I work very closely with other agencies, including DATCAP, the private sector, and really try to create this cohesive messaging around climate mitigation, what is climate smart ag and forestry, and try to identify deficiencies and training needs across our partners, the public, our staff, and really, how to help a farmer create resilient agroecosystems. And then some of my most favorite events are these outreach and education opportunities. So a lot of train the trainer, field days. I still get to go out and do field sampling. I hop in and do some guest lectures for folks. And then again, just improving our access to climate data and tools. I definitely prefer educating on smaller, more intimate levels, you know, small groups in the field on the job training. I did do some lecture type of work when I was a graduate student, but I love the one-on-one, and I think people are just more open to communicating and asking questions when you're in that intimate space. And this picture on the right is from South Carolina about a year ago. It's a beautiful altisol soil. So these are really highly weathered soils. I still have stains on my pants from that soil pit. It does not come out. So just heads up there. So a little bit about my background. Like Sarah mentioned, I grew up in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. So this is Sheboygan County. If you look at this beautiful idyllic picture down here, that's the Osthoff in the background. It's a little resort town. I think there was about 1,300 people when I was growing up there. It's since grown like crazy. It's got Road America, the racetrack, if anyone's interested in that kind of stuff. We went all the time because my dad would get free tickets from buddies at work. So I grew up really into cars. My whole family's into cars. I no longer am, but that was definitely a big part of my upbringing. We moved to Slinger, Wisconsin when I was in 7th grade. That was also the first time I had ever left Wisconsin for a family vacation. Most of our time was spent in Clark County at Mead Lake. Like Sarah mentioned in my bio, my grandpa built a cabin. It had no running water. It has an outhouse, but it's on a lake and it's surrounded by public land. So we spent a lot of time there. And we spent a lot of time in the Kettle Moraine State Forest. So those were some of the memories that I hold dearest, is just being in the woods all the time with my dad, being exposed to nature. We did not own land growing up. We did not farm. My dad was a mechanic and a machinist. He worked at Harley Davidson later until he retired, and my mom was a nursing assistant. So really different background than what I currently have professionally, but good perspectives. So one of the things that started at a very young age was just this perpetual curiosity for the natural world. So my brother and I spent a lot of time roaming the fields and the forest behind our house in Elkhart, which was not our land, so we were trespassing. But back in the day, I think kids were a little more free range. Excuse me, and the neighbors didn't seem to mind. So we would just be out in the woods for hours at a time. And then I started going out west hunting with my dad. And I remember in high school being exposed to these different ecosystems, different climates, different animals, different plant species. And it just kind of blew my mind, and really from coming from a pretty sheltered family, I think that was a really pivotal moment in my life, and sort of started me on this wanderlust path that I have, which I'll talk a little bit more about. And I also became really interested in backpacking and just being in the wilderness and being surrounded by nature. So I kind of let that drive my curiosity professionally and then academically as well. So like Sue, I share a non-linear career path. So I've sort of packaged this slide in this linear fashion because I think that's kind of what we're trained to do, is sort of present ourselves on a resume or a CV of like, here's all the steps I took to get to this point, and clearly I knew what I was doing the whole way. And that is absolutely not the case for me. I was a first-generation college student. So in high school, my aunt was a CPA, certified public accountant, and I worked for her. I also worked at a bank, and I had an internship with Strong Funds, which became Wells Fargo. So I was very much on this accounting, financial career path. Definitely have always had a job since I was 14. And then I remember in high school, so in Slinger, I was taking some agronomic classes and worked with FFA and took an animal husbandry course. And I started to get really interested into that career path, but it didn't make sense to me. I didn't have anyone in my life who had those careers or professions. I did work on the farm with a lot of my friends. A lot of them grew up on dairy farms, so I would come help out and learn the chores. And so that was great exposure. But I had no idea what I wanted to do, other than I knew I was supposed to go to college. So I started out at a 2-year school at UW Washington County to just figure it out, because I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do. I took economics and business classes. I took a meteorology class, but what really changed my trajectory was taking a geology and geography course. So we did a lot of map reading, orienteering, did field trips, learning about the Kettle Moraine area, all the glacial features of Wisconsin. And I remember being at my internship at Strong Funds, writing a list of pros and cons on why I should or shouldn't change my major to natural resources. And I also remember being in my economics class working on my application to UW-Milwaukee to transfer to a four-year school. So clearly I was no longer interested in business and finance, and I was definitely all aboard the natural resources train, just from being exposed to some of those different courses. And I also remember at that point when I was working on my application that I had no idea what the difference was between an undergraduate degree and a graduate degree. So if you would have told me back then that I would end up going to graduate school twice, I would have laughed at you because I didn't even know what grad school was. So my trajectory was not predicted. I just kind of fell into these different experiences because I kept trying things. So I transferred to UW-Milwaukee where I got involved in undergraduate research. A major mentor of mine was Dr. Stefan Schnitzer. He was a tropical forest ecologist. I came to him to learn about working in his lab, and I ended up going to Panama to do tropical forest ecology research. And I did some local research at Pike Lake State Park, where I was looking at the differences in exotic and native shrub species phenology. So the timing of their leaf out, the timing of senescence, and why our understories are being inundated with invasives. So that was my first exposure to science and research, and I absolutely loved it. And I'll go through a couple of my other experiences in subsequent slides, but I ended up going to University of Idaho for a master's degree and Virginia Tech for a PhD. So I'll kind of walk through some of these pathways, but like I said, none of this was predicted and I had no idea what I was getting myself into. So some of the most pivotal moments for me that really changed my trajectory was undergraduate research. So again, not from a science background, but my undergraduate professors in ecology really sort of drove me into these disciplines. And my first soils course was at UW-Milwaukee with Dr. Glenn Fredland, and I just remember loving being in a soil pit. So at this point, I knew I loved being in forests and I love soils, and I still love both of those things. I went to Barrow, Colorado Island as part of a research experience for undergrads through the National Science Foundation. So it was a study abroad that then turned into a summer-long research position. So I got to hop around this incredibly well-studied island, Barrow, Colorado, which is right on the Panama Canal. And I got to see presentations from world-renowned researchers from all over the country. I got to go out with a bunch of German grad students and study bats at night. I hopped along with anyone else doing interesting research on Barrow, Colorado, just to learn and gain exposure. So that was a really fantastic opportunity. It was unpaid. So, you know, I think when you start off in natural resources, you just accept that you're not going to make a whole bunch of money. And when I graduated undergrad, it was during a recession. So natural resource positions and conservation are often the first to not be prioritized in cases like that. And so most of my positions were unpaid, but usually travel was paid. So I was still able to, you know, live off of what was ever in my backpack and get fed essentially. I also did a lot of work at Pike Lake State Park. So I got to walk around this trail and just stare at plants for a year and look at how they're changing. So it was really this observational research, but it was very meditative and it was really interesting science. So I really enjoyed that. After my two undergraduate experiences, I ended up doing a Student Conservation Association internship at Cumberland Gap National Historical Park. So we did trail maintenance, invasive species control, cave monitoring. So it was really just random exposure at a national park, and it was absolutely beautiful. So Cumberland Gap is on the border of Kentucky, Tennessee, and Virginia. So it was my first exposure to the South. After I did my SCA internship, I decided that I wanted to go to graduate school, in part because once I made my major change, I basically went all in on natural resources, did a bunch of internships, did a seasonal gig out west as a rangeland management technician, and knew that I wanted to go back out west. So I thought grad school was a logical next step. In my last 2 years of undergrad, I took, I think, 20 credits each semester to catch up, because I thought that you had to finish your undergrad in 4 years, which my advice is don't rush it, absorb it. Don't stress yourself out like that. I mean, there's always these financial implications, but it is not worth it. So if I could tell my younger self something, it would be do not rush your undergrad and really make sure you take a moment to really appreciate what you're learning and that structured curriculum. So anyway, I went back to grad school because I felt like I needed more structured curriculum, but I also really wanted to do more research, and I love the West. So my master's research was in the forestry department at the University of Idaho, and it was really integrated and interdisciplinary, and we had a fantastic team. So this was kind of my first experience where I worked with these amazing colleagues with the Forest Service, the university, the state foresters, and we were doing biochar research, which is charcoal. We did forestry research where we were looking at how geology and soils really drive management decisions. We were even talking about assisted migration back then, so trying to plant different tree species in northern ranges to anticipate climate change and what that might mean for forest productivity and forest health. So it was a really fun research opportunity, and I met amazing people. I was in a forestry department, so there were no female mentors. I did work with Deb Dumros with the Rocky Mountain Research Station. She's right here, and I still work with her today and reach out to her on biochar related topics. And this is actually a picture of my dad. I got him to come out and do some research with me in Oregon. I worked in the Umpqua National Forest where we had a field trial on biochar, and he was great at clipping foliage samples. After my master's degree, there weren't a lot of job opportunities, and I actually moved to San Francisco for 4 months to finish writing my master's thesis, sold everything that I had, and then decided to go to Alaska. So I did a seasonal gig there, and this was a really awesome opportunity to study wetland biodiversity. So some lakes were increasing in size and some lakes were decreasing in size, and we were wondering if it was related to climate change. So we measured everything from birds to mammals to invertebrates. We lived in a tent the entire summer. The only connection with the outside world was our float plane pilot, and we worked in crews of 3. And at one point it was just 2 of us, myself and Shannon. So we got chased by moose. I had some very close encounters. I fear moose more than I fear bear, and we saw a ton of bear as well. So this was by far my most favorite experience, but it was absolutely terrifying. The mosquitoes were awful. It's everything you expect and more. So this was a really pivotal moment in my life where I kind of, I think I grew up a lot during this experience. And then after Alaska, I moved to Arkansas. So there were no jobs again. So I found the most amazing job description posted on one of the job boards, but it happened to be in Arkansas. But I had nothing else going on. I didn't own anything. So I just moved to Arkansas. And I had a really amazing mentor, Don Bragg, who recently passed away, actually. His whole family was part of this house explosion in Michigan over the holidays where there was a gas leak. And so him and his family perished, and it was awful. But he was an incredible mentor, and I learned a lot from him working in Arkansas. I also learned how to treat chiggers and not deal with snakes. And I also met my husband in Arkansas. I got my dog in Arkansas and met one of my best friends in Arkansas. So all the things I never would have anticipated experiencing there, I did. So it was a really great opportunity, and I'm glad I did it. I also would never move back. But anyway, then working there, I was working with a lot of professors and principal investigators who were leading these research projects, and I wanted to do the same. So I ended up going to Virginia Tech to pursue a PhD in forest ecology and soil science. I was quantifying greenhouse gas emissions in forest ecosystems. I was putting data into these region-wide models, which estimate carbon stocks of these forest ecosystems. And we were looking at how management and climate change influence these carbon pools and fluxes in these systems. So how carbon's moving in and out and what to anticipate with climate change. Then I did a major career pivot. So I moved back to Wisconsin after completing my PhD. I had a postdoc lined up at the Dairy Forage Research Center, but then there was a hiring freeze. So when this happened, I already had my first son when I was finishing my PhD, and then I was pregnant with my second. I had no benefits and not a great salary and no job promised to me that originally was promised to me, which is why I moved back because there was a hiring freeze. So we made the decision to move to the Driftless area in Buffalo County with my husband for his position with the Wisconsin DNR, and I took a break. So I stayed home with my kids. I had just gone through this like hyper motivated, tons of momentum career trajectory and took a really hard pause, and that was really challenging for me. But I ended up going back to work as a consulting soil scientist part-time. And then I worked for the Land Conservation Department. So I got exposed to DATCAP programs. I got to work with farmers one-on-one. I had to relearn how to communicate science, because in grad school, they really teach you to talk at this level with all these jargony words and present to other scientists and write technical papers. And I had to kind of unlearn all of that. And I'm still trying to unlearn it in a way, just to be able to communicate the science effectively to landowners who can actually implement the science. So it was a really rewarding career change. And then I ended up with NRCS. So I get to continue that, working with landowners, educating our partner staff, but I still get to work in the science space. So everything we do is based on science. I don't really miss the research, because I like to see the applied application of that to actually build these resilient agroecosystems, which is what my current job is. So I get to do some of the fun education outreach events, like I did with WiWiC in the past. I get to still collect data that's used to help inform farmers on if their management systems are trending towards, a soil health system or a more resilient system. I get to do case studies and demo farm kind of work. And I still work with soils. I think soil health is climate smart ag, and I think it's imperative that we continue to preach the message of soil health, because it talks about building resilient agroecosystems in the face of change, whether that's climate change, management change, unpredicted change. Basically, if we can build soil health, we can really position ourselves to not put all our eggs in one basket and achieve all these other ecosystem services. So this is really what the focus of my job is. And I like to highlight all the tools we have in our toolbox, whether it's perennial systems, biochar, changing up management practices and implementation, and really educating the next generation. So these are my kids. They get dragged along on all of our camping trips. They've been camping since they were infants, and they love being outdoors. And so I love that they share that passion and that curiosity. And I try to instill that in every outreach event that I do with the younger generation. And I'm very hopeful, despite some of the doom and gloom kind of messaging that we have right now. We have so many opportunities, and Wisconsin is a fantastically diverse and motivated state to be doing this work in. And with that, I'll end with my favorite Aldo Leopold quote, which is what really keeps me in this position and striving to continue to improve our natural world, find nature-based solutions to creating resilient ecosystems, and understanding that we will always have work to do. I have a couple of slides with resources, but I think I'm gonna ignore those for now. And if anyone's interested later, I'd be happy to share some of the soil health initiatives we have going on. And with that,
I think that based on the questions that are in the chat, I think they're going to be very interested to see your slides.
Perfect.
Let's go through a few of the things now. First of all, wow, thank you both for sharing your stories. What an impact it's had, seeing the notes in the chat. People are already commenting on how this is making them feel better about their journey and their experience. And so while I chat, I'm going to have you guys turn on your cameras. Chris is interested, if you're comfortable, please turn on your camera. Chris is interested in grabbing a photo of everybody for this. We always do this fun piece of it. Kristen, I have to tell you, you hit me and just right in the heart. I found out this weekend that my son and his fiance are going to Alaska for their start of their conservation journey. And I'm processing that as we speak, but hearing you talk so passionately about it just is such a good feeling. She just graduated from Winona with a conservation career. Yeah, and I'm just numb, still processing that one, and it's just awesome, and we'll have to connect on that one. So if you're comfortable and can turn your camera on, then Chris can snap a photo. We're going to hit on a few things, and then do we want to do the questions in the chat after that? Chris, do you want to kick us off with a photo first? You're muted.
All right, so I will give everybody a chance to smile. 1, 2, 3, screenshot.
Good work.
Thank you so much.
And which one of you has, well, actually, first of all, I'm going to cover a few WiWiC behind the scenes details. So earlier on, we talked about the fact that there's a Google Sheet for networking. I'm going to have that dropped back in the chat. So if you want to join our WiWiC Educator Network, sign up on that Google Sheet. Look at that Google Sheet. See if we can connect you. Also, we are now scheduling out our Spring into Conservation Learning Circles, and it's going to be all about soils. It's the secrets in the soil. And so please register for these events. They're listed on our website, and you're going to be able to have the opportunity to register now. See if there's one in your region. Also, our amazing Chris, who just snapped our photo, has been doing so wonderful on a podcast and a blog. If you haven't seen our podcasts or our blogs, please check those out. It is so fun listening to those podcasts while I'm driving down the road, hearing from so many passionate women in our state that are doing amazing things. And the last, I have two things actually. There's a WiWiC listserv. And if you're not on our listserv, please feel free to send an email to info@wiwic.org. And that will be in the chat. So just say, add me to the listserv, and we'd be happy to. There are such great questions and such amazing events that are shared through our listserv. And if you don't like emails you get, deleted or asked to be removed, but they are great. So, and always feel free. Oftentimes educators reach out to me. I oversee that info and oftentimes educators reach out to me and they're like, should I be responding to this question? Yes, please. Feel free to respond. Those are great. We love advice from all over. So, and last but not least from my side is going to be our next educator network meetup is going to be this fall. So write down the date of November 14th. This fall, November 14th from 10 to 11:30. We're going to have two incredible speakers for that one too. Gosh, I am just so honored for Sue and Kristen to be here with us today. And now I'm going to kick it over to my team, who is going to be asking the questions that are in the chat to see if there's anything that our speakers can answer.
Yeah, I have some of the questions written down, and either Sue or Kristen, you can hop into this, but I think it's more focused toward what Kristen's doing. There's a question about financial assistance for landowners who have been doing sustainable land management practices at their own expense for years. Programs like CRP kind of favor commodities. So is there something for non-commodity growers, specifically prairies? I think this individual had prairies and hay.
Yeah, I'd encourage them to reach out to their local NRCS and Land Conservation Department field office. Land Conservation departments can have alternative funding opportunities that NRCS isn't as familiar with. CRP, I think they were already in CRP. I thought I read that
No.
one.
Oh,
No.
I'm here. Yeah,
Oh.
no, not in it's not in CRP. I called again yesterday to NRCS to see if there was anything new that was available, but for people like us, there isn't, at least for our existing plantings, which have been in place for 20 some years. And it's just a little frustrating. There's been a lot of dialogue about CAFOs and whatnot in our area, and people opposing CAFOs and all this stuff. But, you know, one of the issues that I brought up is that a lot of people can't afford to do sustainable farming or sustainable land management, and the incentives out there don't favor them. You know, you know, we've used our operation as basically a demonstration farm, demonstration forest, whatnot, you know, and for education purposes. And through that process, I've just learned what's working and what's not working, and why you know, there are pressures for people to be considering going big, you know, getting into digesters and, CAFOs, all of that stuff, it can be really hard to be managing things on the sustainable, smaller scale. Unless
Yeah.
you've got another income stream coming in.
Yeah, and I hear you on that. I mean, we have our program eligibility requirements, which gets into the weeds, but there are a lot of new initiatives coming down with the IRA funds and climate smart ag and forestry and new grant opportunities. So grants may be another opportunity, these conservation innovation grants, RCPP, some others. And then we have a few agreements in the works with private sector and the state to explore some trials on things like biochar and compost and doing soil organic carbon stock monitoring and things of that nature. So please reach out if you're interested in any of that, especially if you've already been working as a demonstration farm of sorts, because there's a lot of opportunities, even with partnerships for climate smart commodities grants. You can become a sub-awardee in there and be able to do some new practices, because while you still have to be eligible for federal funds, the restrictions are a lot looser than I would say our normal programs. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me after this call and I can try to connect you to some opportunities. And if anyone else from NRCS has any comments on this question, feel free to unmute.
Okay, thank you.
So I raised my hand and I'll comment on that. I'm in a group of Agroforestry Coalition, which is a national program, and they are developing demonstration sites all over the country and are looking for demonstration sites to add to their programming. So if you want to touch base with me, I'll connect you with that group. They also give out stipends for that and all sorts of other programming. And there are about 5 different teams under that working group. One is policy, another one is communications, and then I'm on the demonstration site one. So as far as advocating for better programming, that might be a group that you might want to consider participating in.
Ingrid, who are you with? Oh, I'm sorry. And what is your last
I'm actually
name?
with WiWiC. I'm one of their coaches. But I have a farm. I'm an agroforestry farmer, and I used to be with Extension. So
okay.
And I'm at I put my name in the in that Google Drive, so you can find me there.
Okay. We're doing we've got a farm. I've got a small dairy goat herd. We're managing for grassland birds, wetland restoration. We've got forest. We've got all of it going. And we're a demonstration farm with Golden Sands RC&D up in Waupaca County. So, and then we also have 80 acres up in the Nicolay National Forest that we're managing for carbon and all of that, carbon capture. So, yeah, so I'd love to talk to you more. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move right along. So there are questions about grazing and the transitioning from cropping to grazing. They were wondering about funding available to help farmers transition to grazing, and small organic growers. They've heard that from a number of small organic growers that they cannot get crop insurance. There's a couple responses with good connections to this question, but Kristen, if you have anything in particular, you can shout that out here.
Well, and on that one, Kristen, I wonder if you wanted to share your slides, because maybe some of those resources are in the slides. Just curious.
Yeah, I'll pull up some of the new initiatives. So there's a lot of soil health division initiatives coming down from national. Let me. But these pertain more to carbon markets, USDA's position on carbon markets, avenues through the Growing Climate Solutions Act. The one for grazing systems, so the soil carbon amendment standard is applicable to all working land uses, including urban ag. This would still be part of IRA funds and EQIP, our Environmental Qualities Incentive Program. I'm not sure of specific initiatives that would be transitioning from one land use type to another. Again, if someone else knows of those more specifically, please let me know. I do think the Partnerships for Climate Smart Commodities grants are working in that space. And as a state, so we have 27 Partnerships for Climate Smart Commodities projects in the state. And there's some folks on this call who are working in with those grants. Mercedes, you're one, I believe. And then I think Aaron was on, there was a couple other folks with Wisconsin Farmers Union. And so they delegate funds to subawardees, and some of those initiatives may be land use conversion or different systems, but I would have to dig into what all of those folks are offering. But I can drop a link in the chat for our dashboard that highlights all of the Partnerships for Climate Smart Commodities grants in the state of Wisconsin. And then that will give you some contact information of folks that you can potentially reach out to. But a couple of the initiatives, like I said, the biochar work in Wisconsin, we're probably a good 12 years behind some other states in that space, but that's pretty exciting from a climate mitigation and adaptation strategy. And then we have some cool new resources just in the carbon market space and our stance on it. And so some folks were talking about agroforestry opportunities, and a lot of our programs would allow farmers to both participate in carbon programs as well as our federal programs. So stay tuned. We'll be providing a lot more resources in this space for those who are interested.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. And then Sue, we have some questions about the water survey. And could you just go into a little bit more detail about that? And just more details.
Yeah, sure. So the Wisconsin Geological and Natural History Survey, really, its mission is to provide objective scientific information about not only water resources in the state, but also the geological resources. And so a lot of our scientists are engaged in sort of fundamental science mapping of glacial deposits across the state of Wisconsin, or the distribution of bedrock, which in probably 3/4 of the state is buried beneath those surface deposits, right? Those mapping resources and the field studies that go along with them really then inform. It's not the only thing, but they inform our understanding of surface water and groundwater resources, which maybe you were asking a little bit more about. And so the range in types of hydrologic studies that we pursue are pretty diverse. We have one staff member who is set up as really the first contact for kind of county level water resources questions. And so as an example, she is working with Burnett County right now on developing a hydrologic atlas for Burnett. This includes resources like a water table map showing the general direction of groundwater flow, a groundwater recharge map for the county. So recharge is that portion of the water that falls on the landscape, infiltrates down through the soil profile, and actually makes it to the water table, thus recharging an aquifer. So where do we see high rates of infiltration? Where do we see lower rates, right? And of course, maps like that are really important for land use planning, or to better understand the susceptibility of aquifer systems, which is actually another product in this atlas that she is producing, a county-wide groundwater susceptibility map. So we have studies like that, but then some of our other hydrogeologists engage in research with folks at institutions like UW-Milwaukee or UW-Madison on emerging contaminants like PFAS. And so an example of this type of work is some of you are probably familiar with the PFAS problem in the La Crosse area around French Island. And so a large PFAS plume in the subsurface in the aquifer. And so what the survey does in that type of work is we may not be the experts on the geochemistry of these substances, the PFAS compounds, but what we help with is then providing that geologic framework and understanding of how all those geologic layers translate to aquifers and aquatards, and where features like fractures or dissolution features might be more prevalent, thus enhancing the transport of some of these contaminants. So we often partner with researchers at other institutions. And like I said, we sort of provide that geologic framework or hydrostratigraphic framework and expertise. So that's just kind of a big overview of the types of projects that we address.
Very cool. Thanks for that. Just 2 quick follow-up questions from that. I know that we're nearing time, so if you guys have to, if somebody has to hop off, feel free to do that. Yeah, the follow-up questions are, how are we, I don't know, the royal we, I guess, doing in terms of the Clean Water Act standards in Wisconsin's waterways? I know Iowa is really bad in terms of impaired waters, but just curious about Wisconsin.
Well, that's a big question. And I would say it depends on the substance that we're talking about, right? One of the really big concerns in Wisconsin with such a large area in agricultural land uses are nutrients, right? Whether we're talking about phosphorus or whether we're talking about nitrate, right? And so there are regions of the state that are highly susceptible to contamination by these nutrients, by nitrate in particular. So if you go to the Central Sands area of Wisconsin, it's a really vulnerable area, right? And so in some areas, there's a pretty large percentage of private wells that might have nitrate levels that are higher than the drinking water standard, right? And you go into other areas of the state where, depending on land use practices or the nature of the aquifer materials, a good example is in areas like Bayfield County, right? Ashland County, Douglas County, where in many areas the groundwater quality is close to what I would call pristine. So it really depends on just what those land use practices are in a certain region in terms of how we're doing with meeting various standards.
Very cool, thank you. And then someone just asked where can we find if our counties have maps on groundwater information. Somebody linked the WGNHS maps publications. Is that a good resource, or do you have others that you would suggest?
That's a great resource. It's searchable by county, it's searchable by topic. That's a great place to start. If folks have particular concerns about water quality in the area where they live, I would actually also recommend, reaching out to the county level public health department or engineering department, who is likely to have a good set of resources on water quality conditions in a more local setting. But yeah, for resources overall, please visit the publications catalog at the Wisconsin Geological and Natural History Survey.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, Mercedes, thank you for navigating this question and answer session. And I take this time especially to thank Sue and Kristen for making the time to be here and sharing your journey in conservation. You kind of reflected all of our journeys because as a woman, we all know that our journeys are intercepted by our families and our children, and we still strive to grow and contribute in the world of conservation. So thank you so much for sharing that, and also for sharing more technical resources for all the educators out here. So if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach Sue and Kristen. And there were quite some of the questions that we're not having time to get the answers for. We'll probably send them your way and try to get answers as we send a follow-up email to the folks who are on this call. So thank you, everyone who joined us today. We thank you once again for your time, for putting your names on the Google Sheets, and we hope that we will stay connected for this journey of conservation in Wisconsin. Thank you.